We are very, very delighted, to be coming your way this day on the Heritage Month series. This week, we are looking at music. Ghanaians love our music. We can't talk about our heritage without bringing in our music. We have grown, we have evolved when it comes to music, from the traditional rhythms, coming to the high life, through to the hip life era, to Afrobeat and everything in between. Today, on the sound of our identity, we are looking at the gospel music, the choirs, the community music and everything about it. We've brought in fact, we have dragged in one man who is just the perfect person to be telling us about this. He has studied it, he has practiced it, and he is an authority in this. I'm Frema Adunyame, and my guest today is Dr. Alfred Patrick Adakwe, who is a senior lecturer, Department of Music at the University of Ghana. Now, right after this break, Doc will be joining us and we'll have our conversation. You're welcome back to the sound of our identity, and we are looking today at our gospel music, community music, our choirs, How have they performed over the years? How do they influence us? And how do we see their cultural relevance and also their impact on all of us? How do we heal from music and unite with same? Doc, you are very welcome.
Hi.
It's been a billion years.
And there is something so special about you. You do not change. I don't know. I'm sure you are the one to interview me, but let me first ask you a question. I'm sure there is something you are doing right. You do not change. What is it? Don't tell me the grace of God. That one is there.
Beyond the grace of God, yes. I think it's the Apim and the Kobe.
Oh, are you serious?
I'm very serious. Apim and Kobe and, pepper and eggs.
Okay, that's
my
nice.
Favorite meal.
Oh, okay, so you don't do a lot of red meat and...
No, not really.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
I mean, from Kumasi, born and bred in Kumasi.
Oh, yummy oho.
What's Kumasi? In Kakra Kakra.
Yes.
As a Putoshi Gum Kakra, Apem Kakra. But you haven't changed either.
Well, you are telling me. I don't know.
No, you haven't at all, at all. I'm glad we brought you in here today for you to talk about what you do best, talking music. But today we are looking at the gospel side of things, We consider ourselves people who fear God in whichever way you look at it. And we don't take our church activities lightly at all as a people. Although there are other things that we do on the side, but on Sundays, we give it to God. We all know that we have to give that reverence to God. So, Doc, I want us to be looking at the church music and as a cultural force, church music as a cultural force. To begin with, let's look at church music. When we talk about church music, what exactly are we talking about?
Church music has really been broadened. When it started, it was just about the historical mission churches, what the normal person would say Orthodox church,
right. So the
Methodists, the Presby's, but of course, all of us are from Catholic. So the Catholic music was the pure church music. So even as at now, when scholars are writing about church music, most of them still talk about that kind of music.
Right.
However, church music has broadened in such a way that even Sunsum kind of music is still church music, unless, of course, unless we don't accept Sunsum as a church.
Yeah.
So church music has been very broad. Now, even in gospel, you mentioned gospel. What is gospel now?
Yeah.
We have Afrobeat gospel, we have reggae gospel, we have high life, even rap gospel and all.
Yeah.
So now gospel has woven into different genres. Unlike how it started.
Right.
So in music, one of the problems with labeling in music is that as time changes, others also come into it. They interweave or they inculcate this into it. Then it becomes very difficult to define.
Right.
So to define church music now, I can tell you that at the scholarly level, it is, even scholars are struggling to define what church music is, because now we have various, even in Ghana, we have various churches, But I think that for now, I would say that church music is music played in the church. However, let me also ask a question. Someone may also play music, which is not necessarily biblical, but listening to the entire music, it speaks about God.
Yeah.
So is that one also church music?
So I don't know, but I was going to ask, so is it the music or the person performing the music?
That is where the confusion is.
Yeah.
Because you see, I quite remember in somewhere 95, I've forgotten, when Lumba released Mesum Jesus, it was not accepted
Yes.
by the Christians. Let's be frank.
Yeah.
If I say accepted, it was not performed in churches. You know, maybe that is why he went back to play there. So at times, I think it is the person thinking that this is a gospel musician. But I don't believe it is the person. I think it is the message.
Right.
And the message does not necessarily have to be biblical. You know, I think it must really speak about what God stands for.
Right.
His likes, his dislikes and all. So it's not about the personality.
So let's go back to, you know, you mentioned church music originated from the Orthodox churches.
Historical mission.
Okay.
Churches,
I want give us example. So we are talking about which kind of songs here?
All right. So if you are looking at the Catholic masses, where they have the Kyrie, you know, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. That was a pure church music, you know, yes, which started from the Renaissance period and all, where they were doing Latin works and all that. Where later on, of course, there were English hymns and all that.
Yeah.
And the Anglicans and Methodists also popularized the English hymns and all that.
I went to St. Monica's, which is an Anglican school, and I remember, you know, you go there, you have to learn the throughout all ages, well without
end. Amen.
The Lord be with you. I mean, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that was the pure church music at that time.
But the Methodists have quite an interesting twist to it. You know, they do the Christ Little Band and they do all that. So you hear some old woman from the back will get up and, you know, tell us about when Jesus and his disciples were moving on and all that.
Yes. The Christ Little Band Ebibinyum is a pure traditional practice that was woven into the church.
Okay.
That was what Frema Adunyame was always fighting for, and he couldn't get it before he died. I'm sure he'll be very happy now what some of the things that are happening in the church. Yeah, so that is a borrowed genre from the traditional practice into the Methodist
So that is
church,
not originally the church.
No, that's not the original. But it's also it's now church music.
Yeah, because now it's accepted and we do it.
Exactly. So now if we have even hip hop and we hear Christ will save you. Christ is our cornerstone. I know most reverend ministers will think that because it is from the fundamentals of hip-hop, it ceases to be church music. But if you are to ask me, I would say yes, it is church music based on the text. Because for vocal music, the text is the emphasis. So we forget about all other influences. That is my thought though, you know. So church music is still very difficult to define.
But when you look at the Catholics and Anglicans and all that, it was pretty much a call and respond kind of something, you know, with the music.
Yeah, antiphony sort of.
Yeah, but now the choirs also came in, or has it always been that like that?
You know, Catholic churches were very smart enough to know that if they do not understand the different traditions and keep on doing their Latin thing, the church will not grow. So after a particular period, they allowed all traditions to create their own music. So it was no more the call and response again. So now in Tamale, they do their traditional music with the xylophones and all that at that Catholic church. In Kenya, they do so. Now Catholic church has diversity in terms of, you know, music, you understand? So it is not only the call and response, you know, now, call and response, sorry. Now music itself has been diversified, including church music. Yeah.
Now, when you go to the charismatic churches today, it is quite different, you know. They do the choirs strictly. Yeah, I don't know how it has evolved to now dealing with the choirs itself. And even in modern day Christianity or modern churches, you still have that. And the younger people today even do it differently. So we still have that choirs. And where do we place the mass choirs, you know?
Okay, so mass choir, when we are talking about a mass choir, at times people think it is the number that makes it a mass choir. Not at all. The number massive and all that. A mass choir is a collection of different choirs coming together at a particular event or something. But when it's a church choir, and let's say there are about 200, that one could be, you could call it a large choir, but it's not a mass choir. The concept of a mass choir is a collection. But now one argument one will also raise, okay, what if we have about 5 choirs and their number is about 40? Is that also a mass choir? In reality, it is still a mass choir because a mass choir, it was created for, for events where maybe a big church may have different denominations or different branches, and all their choirs come together to do something.
That is a mass choir.
That is a mass choir, but a large choir is not a mass choir.
Okay.
A large choir can be in a church. And therefore, so I don't know the mass choir you are asking, whether it's the numbers you are looking at or the collection.
Well, I'm glad you've defined this, because a lot of people will consider the numbers to be the mass choirs.
Okay.
So we needed to know the difference between the choir and the mass choir. So you can have 1,000 people in one choir, and that is the choir.
Exactly. It's a
when we
choir
have
of the church,
4 people here, 5 people, different choir, 10 people here, they come together to form
a mass
the
choir.
mass choir.
Exactly, for an event, for a particular purpose. So though they are coming from different places, they have different ideologies, but at some point they have to come together and do something together, and afterwards they go back to their various branches. So at the point they are singing together, it forms a mass choir.
What is their influence anyway? So we go to church and all that. The choir, what do they add to the whole thing?
You realize that most of the times the choir starts with the so-called worship and all. I know Ghana worship means slow, praise
so
means
we are dancing
fast or something. But actually, worship and praise has got nothing to do with tempo. It's the text.
It's the text, exactly.
But you let me take it that they start with the worship, as we said, just to create the mood, because music has a way of creating moods. And at the point where people are listening to the music, now the text of the music and the instruments and the beauty of the harmony and all that has a way of letting people even imagine heaven. Some will say, I listen to music and I start imagining heaven. So the choir creates a very important atmosphere in such a way that some ministers even want the choir to sing before they preach, because of that atmosphere they create. So that atmosphere, at times we want to take it for granted as if it is nothing, but actually it is very, very important, because I can imagine, and I remember once in Sumsori, I will not mention his name, once in Sumsori, pastor, whether pastor or reverend minister or Sofo, said that he doesn't really need music in his church. Later on, he came back and was crying that young boys are more so you could see that now. He realized that he needed something to create an atmosphere. So I think it is more of an atmospheric thing, and then the reverend minister also gives the word and all.
But there's also something called community music. Which one is that?
So when we are talking about, of course, every group of people can be referred to as community. Even the whole of ChannelOne is a community. So a church is also a community. But however, how it started, community actually, when you're talking about community music at the scholarly level, we are looking at music in a particular society. Normally it's outside the church, music in a particular tradition where they play, and such community music are mostly participatory, But the question someone will also ask is, but in a church, everyone participates. But you also know that in a church, sometimes we sit and watch the choir to sing. So the emphasis on community music is its participatory level of it. And it's mostly in a community, a tradition. So for instance, when you go to Volta region and they are playing their abaja, you realize that it is not like the Western classical music where everyone has to sit and listen.
It's not a concert.
No, it's not a concert. Everyone joins in. If it's singing, they all join. So that is more of community music. It's not for one person. The emphasis is also not on the composer, performer, as the Westerner does it. It's inclusive. That's community music.
So when you go to the shores and you find the fishermen, pulling their net and all that, they sing. That is community music.
That's community music. It's a community of fishermen.
Give us example. Dog, I know you sing. So I want you to do something. So give us an example.
But you gave an example, like the sisimbum, tabumbum, and even in Adwa music and all that, there are saying that one thing with the African is that the African may keep quiet and watch community music or traditional music if he doesn't know.
Exactly.
So at times there are times you go to a king's court or any traditional event and you realize people sitting and watching the dancers and it means they don't know the music. But once they know the music, they will join in. You understand? So that is what makes it the community. However, as I mentioned from the beginning, as the world was growing, you know, at first, church music was not necessarily community music. Most of the times, they were watching the choir sing as we do. Once in a while, they join in and out. But now, when you go to the charismatic church, from the beginning to the end of the service, everyone participates. So someone will ask whether that is also community music. It's community music in a way, but we are looking at the beginning and epistemology of what is known really as community music, you know, but naturally community music is participatory music or inclusive music. That's it. Yeah.
Right. So we'll just take a little breather here. When we come back, I want us to look at what these music really do to us as a people. This is the sound of our identity. We are looking at our choirs, we are looking at community music, we are looking at Christian music in general. My guest here is Dr. Alfred Patrick Adakwe, and he is a senior lecturer at University of Ghana, Legon. I'm Frema Adunyame. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is the sound of our identity. We are still in our Heritage Month, and my guest here is Dr. Alfred Patrick Adakwe. We are talking music. In fact, he is music. Doc, before I almost said Rev. Maybe I'm prophesying.
Amen, amen,
now,
amen.
prophecies, you don't joke with them, Before we went on the break, we spoke about church music. We were just on community music. Now, I want us to look at music as social healing, and unity. How does that play?
Okay, so let's first deal with the social healing.
Right.
Then we talk about unity. At times, people think healing means healing a sick only, But healing is very broad, For instance, I'm just giving an example.
Right.
If I want to go and commit suicide, and I hear Sarkodier's rap, that's it. Now, you say social
You pause and listen.
Then I pause. Then I be like, I don't know what is happening there. So that one, I have been healed from the thought of suicide. And at times, you want something to draw you closer to God. And you listen to a particular kind of music and it draws you closer. At that time, you have been healed in one way or the other. And of course, so in the healing, we have intentional and deliberate healing. That is the music therapy, where we have some kinds of music that they intentionally play and they have systems, in place to heal the sick or anyone. However, there is nothing like a general music that heals anybody. Forget about the Westerner that said Mozart's music helps children to be brilliant and all those things. They are all fallacies. Because that Mozart music will do nothing to a child in Sugakupe, actually. A child
maybe, the rhythm and, all that, it puts you in a certain...
Let me tell you, at times, if you are listening to a particular music that you are not used to, no matter how beautiful it is and no matter the intention of the composer, you will not be healed because you don't even understand. You can't even resonate. So when you are talking about music to play even in the hospital, there is no one music that will, because that pure village hospital, that pure village man that is sick and needs some music to really heal him, you can't be playing Mozart's symphony, you understand? So even that healing is also contextual and it is cultural, And talking about unity, all those sayings are myths that we musicians created ourselves just to defend music. But as I was growing, I realized that can we keep on lying to defend music, that music brings unity?
It doesn't?
You and I know that even in the choir, there are a lot of people quarreling in the choir. Within instrumentalists, they are quarreling. Yes. You have a choir in city, and you know that it has always not been... So where is that unity from? The unity we are talking about in music is not moral unity.
Okay.
It's musical unity, the coherence. At some point where, though, you all have your differences, but when you come together to sing, you sing as one. You sing with one rhythm. You sing beautifully. So the heartbeats, the music and the synchronization of the music is where the unity is. But afterwards, you go and solve your differences here and there, So music creates musical unity. Or let's say synchronizing unity, but not moral unity.
But you know, when you hear na 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 or yeah or when you hear it doesn't matter who you are. Is that not unity?
No.
NDC people dance with it. NP people, when you play that at a party,
yes,
everybody gets up. I think when the rhythm is good, we also forget our differences.
That one is there, but that one is the beauty of the music that is drawing us together. But afterwards, if I'm MPP, I'll continue to be MPP. It's not the sprr that will make
the moment the music
MPP.
ends now, then you remember that. You can, why am I standing here with you?
It's the beauty of the music that brings us together.
Right.
So it is musical unity, but we shouldn't pretend as if music brings us together where NDCs and MPPs sing "To God Be the Glory" together. Because of that, it has created unity.
No.
Meanwhile, you know, it is not. There are many myths in music that are not factual. I think that there are better ways to defend music than to use social healing and unity and music.
So like what?
Oh, but there are, because you see, everyone listens to music.
Yes.
You see, so at least it's nice to have an idea of some of the components that go into the music, because when you are playing an instrument, the feeling, the emotional. When I'm playing the keyboard and singing, what I feel, I doubt anyone else feels the same thing unless the person is in there.
Yeah.
And that is my healing. It does a whole lot of things for me, you know. But it's not like because of that I'm creating unity or because of that I'm creating social healing. Meanwhile, I know what I'm playing may not be effective in Northern region. I gave an example that I went to Northern region and they were playing music at a particular traditional ceremony.
Yeah.
And then I was asking myself whether I'm a musician, because what they were playing...
You were lost.
Yes, I was lost actually. And if they
it wasn't a piano.
No. It wasn't a piano because of my background.
Exactly.
You know, if they had called me, I wouldn't have performed because So it means that at that point, music is cultural. You understand? So I don't think we have... The myths in music, I think we have to relook at them.
Probably it's also because sometimes you just can't define what music does.
It's difficult to define music.
Yeah.
Music itself is now being difficult to define. I mean, forget about all what you see in the Oxford Dictionary and all that. Today I was reading a dictionary that said music is a sound that is pleasing to the ear. So if you hear any music that is not pleasing to your ear, it's no more music, you know?
It's noise.
And this kind of definition is very dangerous, because now it is not even allowing us to explore different types of music.
Right.
Because we think once we hear something,
I must understand.
You must, and it's not true.
No.
You know. So, but we are still working on it. I prefer the word sonic relationality. Sonic is sound. Relationality is all the things that are connected to the sound. So it is not just about the music. You know. That is how come. Those days, we music teachers, the mistake we were making, we go to the classroom, our concentration is just the music. We draw the treble, clef, and the notes and all that. And it becomes difficult for the students to understand, because the whole thing is that even those things we are drawing, they are connected to society. But our concentration is on the music. But there are many things connected to music.
Yes, yes.
For sure.
In wrapping up, Doc, tell us, what our choirs are doing today, are they still relevant like they used to be in times past? Have they evolved, you know, adding so much even to what their influence and their impact is today? They
have really evolved. Even this topic of a choir being evolved and all that is still personal. Someone might have listened to Elder Mreku's music and repented. And that person may feel that because of that, Elder Mreku's kind of music is the music that repents people.
Yeah.
You know, it is from a particular era. And so that era, they will never, ever appreciate what the current era is doing. And what the current era is also doing, they will never appreciate. It is generational.
Right.
It goes on and on. But if you are to ask me, I would say it has evolved so much, because now even looking at the kind of instruments we are using in church.
Yeah.
At first, when I was growing, most churches were just clapping and singing.
Or wooden clappers, or the maracas.
With no instrument. No. We thought because we were Africans, not knowing you know, so it has really evolved. Right. Looking at the singing style, even the dressing of the choirs, you know, it has changed from the normal black and white to you know,
Now
diversity.
we're even doing jeans and stuff like that, doing casual stuff and all that.
And they are all part of the
Yes,
music,
yes,
you know,
yes,
because
yes.
even looking at the background and the kind of quality that comes in it, it has really evolved in different ways.
Doc, thank you very much. We've been educated, so now at least when we talk about church music, the choirs, community music, as a healing tool, as a tool of unity, we really understand what that means. But as Doc put it, you know, music is a personal appreciation of, I mean, whatever it comes with. It ministers to people individually, whether it is a choir singing, whether it is in the community music, whether it is an individual doing the ministration. We receive it individually, although we find ourselves in groups. And so how you would appreciate music will be different from how I will appreciate music. And the healing process is also very different. Doc, thank you very much. We truly appreciate you for coming. And thank you also very much. We're still in the Heritage Month. And today we're looking at church music, choirs, community music. My guest has been the amazing, you know, the talented Dr. Patrick Adakwe. Alfred is in there as well. Dr. Alfred Patrick Adakwe, he is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Music Department. I'm Frema Adunyame. Thank you for watching.